Hi, y'all. Happy Sunday. I almost forgot what day it was. Anyway, happy Sunday. So excited you guys are here with me today to paint, and let me show you how I painted my Bless Our Nest design. It is a beautiful, balmy, almost stormy 80 degrees here in Middle Georgia. I hope you guys are having great weather. Supposed to storm about halfway through my demo today, so hopefully we won't lose power. If we do, I will jump back on and finish. So I was watching Holly Hanley's live the other day, and I decided I need one of those swivel chairs. She looked so cute as she sat there and swiveled in her chair, and I have a cushion under my tush and a cushion behind my back. So I am excited about this piece today. Super simple and fun. I love bird nests. When I zoom down on my other camera, I'll show you. I have a few. What else? We'll take care of giveaways from the last live and giveaways for this live. Hi, Bonnie Duncan. Always good to see you here. And guys, ready to get started? And this is our piece for today. This is one of the nests I was telling you about. This was in our cornhole game. And I just am fascinated with how they are made. And there's just tiny little feathers in there and twigs, and it just looks soft enough to lay in, doesn't it? Which, of course it has to be for their little baby eggs. This one even looks like it has some fibers of something in it. So this was in the cornhole game. I don't know how long it was. Never found eggs or anything in it. And we don't keep our garage door open often, but obviously we did often enough for them to build a nest. They just never laid anything in it. So I guess they found another place. But anyway, fascinating. So this is our piece today. I'm going to set this aside and let's take care of giveaways from the last Facebook Live. So on that live, I have one from 2 times ago when we did the Live, Love, Laugh. Christine Kenny, if you will message me and let me know your mailing address, I will get the one that I painted during the demo off to you in the mail. Christine Kenny, if I'm saying that right. Oh, thank you, Anne. Hi, Kathy Murphy. Stencils that I had for the giveaway on my last live when we did the bike were these great Tim Holtz stencils, and those go to Jessica Potter. So Jessica, if you'll message me, private message me your address, I will get those off to you. I'm gonna move those to the side. And then the piece that I painted during the class with the bike and sunflowers, which thanks so many of you for getting that e-packet on my website. Greatly appreciate it. And so the piece I painted during the class goes to Judith Laubacker. So Judith, if you will message me, I will get that off to you this week. But let's go ahead and get started on our Bless Our Nest, okay? And, oh, thank you so much, Patricia, I appreciate that. I'm gonna show you how I did the background first. Few little steps. This is a surface from cdwood.com. So Chris Hoy at Cover Distributing has awesome surfaces, and this is one of my go-to. I just love it. There's so many things that you can put on this surface. It does have another side that doesn't have the grooved lines. You can see them, but they're not grooved. This side, it does have the grooved lines, and I like that it gives it that kind of palette look. So let's do the background first and move that out of the way. Okay, so I base coated, I already have it done on the other side, but I base coated this with asphaltum. Okay, so with asphaltum, my label took a beating there, but base coated the whole thing, let it completely dry. And then I'm gonna go over it with the Vintage Effects wash. I found a box. I have, I don't know, probably 24 bottles of this. It's available on my website right now, but I love this Vintage Effects. You can use it as a stain, kind of a whitewash or a wash of color, and I like to use it full strength too. But so this is what I used in the background. I'm gonna go ahead and give that a nice little shake. So thank you again for being here and joining me. So I'm just squeezing it out onto the surface, and being bad, I probably should put it on a palette. And then using a large brush, this is a 1-inch flat wash Dynasty brush. And I'm just going to spread this out. And I have a lot going on in the background. Even though it looks pretty plain, there are several steps to it. And again, all this is laid out, step-by-step pictures and instructions in the e-packet on my website. I know many of you have already gotten it. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm just going to wipe that on, leave it for a minute. So, and I am working on, this is a rubber silicone mat, got it at Amazon. I should have bought stock in them because I know many of you have already gotten them. I love working on it because I can just wipe it right up. Protects my surface. So I'm just letting this set up for a minute because I don't want to wipe too much of it off. Now, when I do wipe this off, Karen, Vintage Effects came out, I would say maybe 3-4 years ago. Such an awesome product. You can get that kind of stained wood, old wood, patinaed wood, vintage look, beach signs it's perfect with. I love doing the whitewash, and it's a color wash paint, but again, sometimes I even leave it like this because I absolutely love anything turquoise or aqua, and I love this color. So I'm using Viva paper towels because they're soft. They don't have a design. I know Viva makes some now that have a design and pattern on them, but I like to use just the soft white ones, okay? So I'm just gonna kind of scrunch that up in my hand, and I'm just gonna give it a little bit of a light wipe. And I want everything going from left to right. So I can flip that, get a clean part of the paper towel. And these, I love these colors together, that asphaltum and turquoise or aqua, so pretty together. Okay, so see how I'm just, and I don't care if I can see lines. I'm getting some lines from my paper towel or even where my fingernails are kind of going into it. I really don't care too terribly much about the marks right now. And I'm just going to wipe that, and then I'm going to hit it with a heat tool. Don't you just love it, Diane, that matte? And I see my hand just froze on the screen. Not sure what's up with that. Maybe when we move over to YouTube, we won't have that issue. But using my Ranger Heat It craft tool, great quiet little heat tool. You can get those at cdwood.com. You can also get them at dickblick.com. Okay. Not sure. They used to carry them at Hobby Lobby, or Michael's. Not sure if they still carry them or not. But I'm just going to dry this. I already have the other side completely done, and I was going to do this step, but I really wanted to show you guys that process of wiping it off and how much to wipe off, because of course it can say it in the packet in the instructions, and I even have pictures, but I think it's helpful if you can see how it's done and the effect that you get from those vintage effects. So Patricia, I got my mat on Amazon, and if you put large silicone mat, there are two. This one doesn't have a sticky back. I bought another one, and I put in large silicone baking mat, and it does have a very sticky back. It's on my other workstation. I like them both, but I have to tell you, I do prefer this one. The other one, it tends to hold the paint a little bit more. So if you just put large silicone mat in the little browser on Amazon, you can get it there. Okay, and then I'm just going to give it a little bit of a touch test. Okay, it's looking dry. All right. So once that's completely dry, you do want to let it cool down for a second, okay? That it does get quite warm, and you also want to move it as you're drying your piece, because if you sit in one area, it will bubble that paint. All right. So the next thing I'm going to do is take the Vintage Effects wash in white. And this I'm going to apply with a brush. Go ahead and put it on my palette here. And I'm going to use my trusted little oval wash. This is Encaustic Natural Hair. Tracy Moreau's Fugly brush is what it's known for. And look what I did. I covered my handle on my other one. I covered it with glitter, Galaxy Glitter, Deco Art, and then I put resin over it so that I can wash it and it's very smooth. Anyway, so, but I don't want that camera trying to get all on that sparkle and try and focus. So I'm going to use the natural handle one. So you do want to get this wet. Tap it off on the paper towel. I'm going to pull some of the white down, work that in. Because I love this blue, but I do want to tone it down a bit. Okay, so get a little bit more water. A little bit more Vintage Effects. It's very thin, as you can see. The waters make it even thinner. Monty, I will have to look. I want to say it's like a 24 by 15 size, but I will definitely measure it. And if I can find the link, I've shared it on Facebook a couple times. If I can find a link, I'll put that in the comments section, okay, underneath your question. So again, putting that white Vintage Effects on. Now this time, instead of leaving it for a long period of time, I do want to wipe it off. Okay, this is another, my friend Ken Oliver does this, and I always think, oh, I'll waste so many paper towels. But to not get those ridges and lines, you can take your paper towel thing and just go side to side. Okay, now look how that toned down that blue. Okay, now I want to take a little bit more off than that. So I'm going to bring my paper towel up, and I'm just going to softly wipe it back and forth. It's going to take that blue down several notches. Oops, just lifted it. That's for me pushing too hard, but that's quite all right. Clean up that mess. Okay, so once this dries, I'm going to show you how I came back in and added the really pretty brown on the edges. You could do it with a brush, but I'm going to show you a really cool way to do it with an old hotel key. So, and my friend Madeline, who teaches art in New York, sent me a box of these little blank, like hotel keys. And I just thought that would be perfect for scraping that paint right on. Hi, Paula. What can you use in place of the Vintage Effects? Just water down some paint. So maybe desert turquoise or peacock teal in the background. And then you can just water down some white. Okay, so just your regular Americana in place. This, the Vintage Effects are self-sealing. So you don't need to do anything to seal them. They're already sealed, and it's one thing when you put them on not to overwork it. If you overwork it, you'll start to feel it drag, and that's because it has a built-in sealer. Okay, so that's dry. The Vintage Effects paint. I have this color on my website right now. You also could check with Maureen Baker. There's her website. She carries a lot of Deco Art product, Dynasty brushes. You can check out maureenbaker.com. She's got a dash between her name. Also, cdwood.com. Check there and see if they have the Vintage Effects. And then you can also always check out, oops, let's get that link up. Shop.decoart.com. And they have a sale going on right now. So when you go to their website, there's a sale button in the top left on the menu. And I don't know if it's on sale or if they even have it available on their website, because of course everyone's trying to get products made and out to stores and customers. So I'm not sure if that's something that they have on their website right now. But again, I found a box of these that I bought, and those are on my website under the What's New tab. All right. So, okay, so this is dry now. The next thing I'm going to do is, yes, Letitia DecoArt has an inventory sale, and one of my favorite products is the DecoArt Chalky Gesso, and it's on sale right now, guys, at a really good price. Okay, so using this little card, you can use an old credit card, gift card, whatever, but I want to pick up just a little bit of paint. You could also use a palette knife, but what I'm going to do is just going to start from the side, and I'm going to drag it on. Okay, because I don't want, let me show you the finished one. I want it to stutter. I want to get kind of that very chipped wood look, and so look how chippy that is. It dragged a little bit more here. I'm going to show you how to take it away if you get too solid of a line. But the key is just to pick up a little bit of that paint on the card and then swipe it. And then I like to, see, can you hear it? Drag. I like to go over it and drag it. Okay, I'm going to do this on purpose and show you what, if I do that and I get too harsh of a line, all I have to do, because it's such thin paint, is come back with a baby wipe, and I can just wipe it off. Okay. So very little paint. Oh, that's awesome to hear, Robin. My favorite paint. Okay, so you get the gist. You just kind of want to drag it on. Get too much, you can even take a paper towel and soften the look. Okay, and of course, I have it finished on this side, and I knew that was going to happen. So let me get the Vintage Effects wash off. See, it just washed right off. But look at that brown with that card, just how chippy your background will look like to make it look like it's old wood. Okay, let's clean this mess up. And if you have something that you let dry on too long, hand sanitizer works great. Even packing tape. Just to lay it on the dried paint, push it down, work it in, and then lift it up, and all that paint comes with it. Okay. So I know the other side's a little wet. That's quite all right. Okay. And so I did my pattern. I went ahead and put my pattern on. Let me just go over that. And so in the packet, the line drawing, it has a tiny little circle at the top, and that's to line it up with that and then to lay the pattern. The key is it lines up on the left-hand side. You just want to make sure that you don't push that all the way to the edge, because see how the eggs look like they could fall out? So it does go at a little bit of an angle so that the nest is facing up. All right. And then I went ahead and just base coated it with brown and black. So going with that oval center and in the shape of the nest with my strokes, which will help you be able to see the layout of that nest. Okay. I'm going to save my hotel keys. Yes, Anna May, when I traveled, I have a huge stack. I would keep all of my hotel keys. So, ooh, it just got very dark here. Okay, so I'm gonna get a couple paper towels out. Wipe up that Vintage Effects so I don't get my hand into it. And then on my palette, I want to go ahead and get some asphaltum. We'll get some marigold. You can use golden straw, true ochre. If you don't have asphaltum, you can use burnt umber, raw umber. But I love that golden tone of that asphaltum. Okay, Marigold. And Linda Franco, I used an angle brush. I'm going to show you guys how I laid that out and how I layer the colors on this nest. So this is light buttermilk. If you don't have this, you can use any kind of a tan, creamy color. You know, oyster bay is just a little on the dark side. If you have buttermilk and not light buttermilk, that's fine. You can mix a little white with it. Okay, and then actually a little bit of white. So again, I have asphaltum, marigold, light buttermilk, and white. And I'm going to use my 3/8 angle from Dynasty. Hello. If you don't have paint on your hands, you need paint on your hands. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is, this was an afterthought. I got completely done with my design and it needed something. So I came in, and so in the step-by-step pictures, it comes almost last. And I put in these little flourish stencil bits in the background, and I did that with the M square. This is M23 flourish stencil. This is a stencil line that I have with Tracy Moreau. Okay, so let's do that first, and I'm going to use Stencil Pro Dynasty brush and just swirl that paint. I'm using light buttermilk. Ah, that's a great idea, Janet Henderson. Hotel keys work great for gift tags. Perfect. Okay, so wipe most of it off. Light buttermilk, load it up on the brush, wipe most of it off. And then I just kind of laid this here and there. Soft circular motions. And I'm not really worried if I get all of the design or not. Okay, too much, or you have an area where it just stops, just kind of wipe it with your hand. See how that kind of tones it down? You can use a paper towel. I'm being lazy. I don't mind getting paint on my hands. Okay, and then we'll have a little bit coming from the nest. Soft circular motions. Again, just kind of soften that out. You can flip the stencil over if you want the design to go a different direction. So Janet, the first color on the nest is a mixture of black and asphaltum, just to get a dark base. I added a little bit more black to this brush to do the center oval so that I could see that and have it stand out more. And then let's get... And if I miss a question, I will go back and look at all the comments later and answer those for you. If you don't have paint on your hands, you have to try harder. Absolutely, Denise. Hi, Monica from Peru. So happy you're here. Again, I've never minded paint on my hands. And when I teach live classes, I always tell them I'm going to come around and check, and if they don't have paint on their hands, they have to go sit down because it means they didn't have fun. Just play. Just play and have fun with it. Painting is supposed to be fun. I say it all the time. Okay, so now that we have that stencil design on, we can get busy on our nest. So let me zoom in just a little bit so we can get just the nest for now. All right, so hopefully you can see that. I want to get rid of that. A little bit of cleanup. Okay, so, and it has a little dust, you know, from that vintage effects, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to start and start putting some more of those colors on. I am going to get out a little bit of black. Hey, Deb. Thanks, Diane. I do too. And again, once I got done and I did the words, it just needed something to soften the look. And that flourish stencil Tracy had made for our M square stencil line. And this is my scroll work. So, okay, 3/8 angle. Go ahead and get it wet. Tap it off on a paper towel. And I'm going to start layering. Now, what I want you to notice about these nests, I mean, hello, look how different this one is, right? But the twigs, you can still see bend, okay? That one's very round. They bend right in here. So a little bit straighter in here, bent and kind of crimped in here as you come around. Again, another bend so that you get that automatic shape of that nest. And probably one of my favorite things on this whole thing, other than the eggs, is I love this little subtle touch of paint inside the nest that gives the appearance that you can see how this nest is made. Okay, instead of it just being dark and flat, you can actually see some of those lines. So I'm going to take my damp angle brush and I'm going to load it up with asphaltum, a little bit of black. Let me pull my palette over so that you can see. Asphaltum, a little bit of black, and this is exactly how I painted those strokes. Sliding on the chisel edge of the brush. The heel is pulling first and followed by the toe of the brush, which is that longer part on the brush, okay? So this is exactly how I filled in my little sections on my nest. The key as we layer these colors is to not cover up all the layer before. So when we go to add this next layer, we don't want to cover up all the dark because those pockets of dark is what's going to help give your nest dimension and shape and it not just be flat to the surface. Okay. So I'm just sliding and see a little bit less pressure there, more pressure there. And that makes it pretty too because it will give a little different look to the twigs that you're painting. They're not all cookie cutter exactly the same. So just sliding on the chisel edge. I left these a little wispy, so I'm going to go ahead and repaint those. Asphaltum, black. Notice how I'm not mixing it down to one color. I'm just picking it up, picking it up. So, broken, loose V shape. Okay, let me do it on this side so that you can see on my original. So with your nest, it's that very loose V, but you can also do that, okay? Just to give that very broken twig look, okay? So they don't have to always be connected, but it has that shape, especially around the left and the right of our nest. All right, a little bit more asphaltum and black, and you probably aren't noticing that big of a difference in the color than what I already had base coated on there. The reason I'm putting this on is because I want it to be a little on the wet side. I like working wet on wet when those colors pick up the previous layer. I like that, so it's one of my favorite ways to paint. And if you get your nest, too far and you want to take away some of those twigs, all you have to do is come back in with some asphaltum and take away some space, and then take your blue, your Vintage Effects, and wash it in there. So you can kind of tidy up the edges if you want to. And I'm telling you that because that's what I did on my original. It got a little out of hand. I kind of made it too big. So, okay, so I'm going to shape up that circle. So again, it's looking a little bit more that direction. And I need to put my original somewhere. Put it right there so that I can see. Does that cast a shadow too much for you guys? Hopefully not. All right. So again, black and brown. I need to stop that. Now I'm going to wipe off my brush. I'm going to pick up a little bit of asphaltum and a little bit of marigold. If I go straight into marigold, it's going to be too bright. Okay, so asphaltum and marigold. And again, I'm just going to slide. Let me get a little moisture in my brush. Asphaltum and marigold. And I'm going to slide, and I'm just going to randomly slide and paint these twigs. Okay. Kind of frame in that section in the center. Thank you, Pilar. So good to see you on. You can hear, I can hear your birds. That's, yes, Sandra, I have one sitting right outside my studio door right now on the porch. And it got quite dark out, so it's about to storm, and I think they're looking for some shelter. So again, asphaltum, marigold, and you're just gonna slide on the brush. I do have a little bit of water in my brush just to get it to move. And the key is to not overpaint it, to, you know, just making sure you're skipping and jumping around so that you can leave some pockets of that dark showing through. But I will come back because inevitably, I probably will even put too many. I'll show you how to regain that dark area if you need to put it back in. Okay, so again, sliding on the chisel edge. And another reason I love using the angle brush is because it's easy to slide on that chisel edge, and I can apply more pressure to it if I need to get that a little bit wider. Okay. Again, leave some of that dark. Marigold and asphaltum. And as we layer, we'll just continue to pick up the next color with that other color on our brush, just to add some harmony and softness into those colors instead of it being so bold and bright and in your face. Now, when it gets to around the nest, I do want to pull some of those little twigs right into that space, okay? You don't want it just to have a circle or an oval. You do want some of those little twigs very nice and thin, and I'll come back for the little twigs and put that in with my liner brush. Actually, I put it in with my number 2 rigger that I used for this project. Okay, so notice how it's starting to drag. I need more moisture in my brush, a little bit more paint. Oh, thank you, Isabel. Thank you, Brenda. I think sometimes, you know, when you paint a piece, it helps, or take a class, it also always helps to know how to fix something. Because I was notorious for, if I messed something up when I was designing it, I would sand it off and start over. There are so many ways to fix things now that I have learned from other teachers, and then also just by trial and error. Like, okay, I took that out, I can put it back in. Reminding myself that I'm in control of that brush. Okay, see, now I'm getting a little carried away, and I'm going to start covering up all that dark. So I'm going to wipe off my brush, pick up some marigold and some buttermilk. Okay, so not mixing it down to one color. If I want a color just to be one flat color, like this and this mixed together, I would use a palette knife. I like to brush mix, because if I pick up a little bit of this and I pick up a little bit of this, I might pick up more of that one time, I might pick up more of that one time, and it gives me a different look in my design than if it's straight out of the bottle. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with it straight out of the bottle. But if you want a softer, different look, then, you know, just kind of brush mix that here and there. Now, this is getting a little on the bright side. Notice how it's dragging, need to pick up a little bit of water. So I am going to go back to a little bit of that marigold and start toning that down, because I want that yellow color first. So a little bit more marigold. So I wiped off my brush. I just picked up, I have a little buttermilk in there, but I am just marigold right now. And I'm going to paint some of those little twigs. See how bright? That's just too bright for me. But I will show you how to fix that. So started with asphaltum and black, went to asphaltum, then asphaltum and marigold. Now just a little bit of marigold. And then we'll do some marigold with light buttermilk. finished with light buttermilk and white for those brighter highlights. But you just want to get that shape going. Okay. Just slide on the chisel edge. And a lot of times as I'm teaching, I'll just keep stroking, keep going over it, showing you what I'm doing. And then before I know it, I've put too much. So I will show you how to come back and put in that dark space. We want some of those brighter. Okay, I'm going to pick up a little bit more asphaltum because I do want it a little bit darker down here. You'll notice. And then when we come and we do the edge, it's also going to darken up that, that side of the nest as well. So a little marigold. Okay, you can slide it either way. I like to pull it with the heel first, followed by the toe. Okay, so starting to get that golden tone. Thank you, Linda. Oh, thank you, Anne. Well, Lynn actually is super easy with this brush. It's doing all the work for me, other than me just, you know, sliding on that chisel edge and doing those little twigs. Okay, so now marigold and some of the light buttermilk. And I am gonna just less of these, and I really kind of want to frame in this left side top, and then there's just a few of those strokes. That's why I've got to get rid of that very bright one there, with that lighter highlight of color. So marigold, light buttermilk, whew, it is dry in my studio. Okay. So see, I'm not worried if I'm going over all the twigs. I'm just stroking the brush. It will look much better than if you're like, oh, that twig, I have to highlight that one, and I have to highlight that one. Just let your brush move. I promise you it will look good. Okay, now in here, I want just a few of these brighter twigs. And down here, remember I said that's just a little on the bright side for me. I'm just going to go back in with asphaltum, slide on that chisel edge of the brush, pick up a little bit of marigold, tiny touch of buttermilk, and look how that just took that down. Oh, love the color and the look of that. Tiny, tiny touch. And let's get some little tiny twigs coming right into our nest. Okay. Now, notice how this is very tight. I have dark spots here. I have no dark spots there. So let me show you how to regain and put in that area. So I'm just going to use, you could use the toe of that brush. I'm just going to use a small little flat. You could also use a liner brush, but come in with a little bit of asphaltum, tiny touch of black. Just kind of work those in. And you just want to kind of slide that in. Okay, and I'll kind of soften it with my finger. See how that took out a notch from that very heavy painted area that I said I was going to do. But if you do it at home too, then you'll know what to do to fix it. Okay, and I just kind of soften it into the, so it doesn't look like it has a start and a stop. Okay, see how that's starting to help regain that space. You can just slide. And I don't want to do it too much, and you certainly don't want it to, like, if it sticks out, like you can tell you put space back in there, you can soften that with a few more strokes of paint, okay? And you can just half it, like go over it once, just like that, okay? See how you can still see it, but it's regained that space for you. Okay, we'll come in. All right. Now I am going to go ahead and get out a little bit of my Vintage Effects turquoise, because I also want some of that, just a dot. Your instructions are so easy to follow. Thank you, Margot. I am a little wordy in my packets, but I do like to give more information than not enough. And fixing boo-boos, yes, Sandra Schmidt, I think that's one of the greatest lessons in a lesson, is knowing how to fix it. Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit more of the Marigold Light Buttermilk. I don't want this too bright, but I do want just a few of those strokes on that side. And then wiping off my brush, going to pick up some light buttermilk and white. Now these are going to be my brightest. So light buttermilk, a little bit of white. Look, I don't have a lot of paint on my brush, okay? Very little. And then these, I'm going to hit just a few little places in the brightest spot. Gets too bright, wipe it with your finger. Okay, so just a few little brighter. Light buttermilk, touch of white, mix it together. And of course I want it to look exactly like my first one, which is not going to happen. I never paint the same thing twice, ever. The same way. The same way, yes. For it to look exactly the same way, no. And again, as you can see, because this is just letting the brush slide on the chisel edge, you will have a variation and a different look if you paint it 3 or 4 or 5 times. Okay, and again, I don't want those too bright, but I don't want to just leave it without some kind of a little highlight. So I'm going to pick up a little yellow. That marigold is yellow on my palette. It's looking very yellow on the camera too. Little marigold, light buttermilk, touch of white, and I'm just going to hit a couple little places on this darker side of the nest. And then I do want to add a little bit of softness out here. And I have a private paid membership on Facebook. It's the Art of Art Journaling. The Adventures of Art and Art Journaling. Hello, I can't even get my own group name right. And I asked him, should I add a feather? And then I completely forgot to add a feather when I did the, when I put it online. But I do think a soft little white baby, you know, down feather would be super cute added to this. So these little wispy twigs that come in when we do our eggs, I will come back and probably put in another little area. These little soft twigs that come away from the nest, highlight those just a little bit more. And again, just curving. Hold it back, look at it. If it's too bright, too light, go to the previous color. Okay, you can always go back and add asphaltum. You can always go back and add a little bit of marigold to tone that down. All right, so I'm liking the way that's looking. Let's go ahead and put in some of the Vintage Effects turquoise. Again, if you don't have this, you can use Peacock Teal, Laguna, Bahama Blue if you want to. That's my favorite deco art color. if you want a lighter shade, but any kind of aqua turquoise, desert turquoise, Indian turquoise, but I'm going to pick up just a little bit of this color. So Pilar, this is the brush I'm using. It is an angle brush. So notice the angle on it. It has a toe and a heel. Okay, and I'm sliding on the chisel edge of the brush so I get a nice thin line. So I'm going to add some of that right on the nest, just here and there, but not everywhere. Okay, and tiny touch of white will make that even brighter, but it will also be bright where it hits the white light color. Okay, and I don't want a lot of this, but I love it in that finished piece. Just adds that background color into our nest, just like that. Oh, isn't that so pretty right there? So Linda, on my website, I do have the Vintage Effects wash in turquoise, but I don't have white. I do carry the Fugly brush, the 1-inch oval brush. And then, of course, I have the e-packet on my website. And this, of course, will be recorded. It will be here on my page, and it will also be available today, later today on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. So if you are watching this on YouTube when it's out, I'd love for you to hit the subscribe button. And if you don't already subscribe to me there, I'd love for you to subscribe. Like I said, my next Facebook Live will be over on YouTube. Okay. Now, I'm feeling like I did with my bird nest exactly what I said on the pattern would happen if you have it tilted. So I'm going to come in and beef this up just a little bit right down here because I want that nest to look like it's leaning more that way. Just going to darken that area right down there. A little marigold. Little buttermilk, little brown. All right. Let's put a few little strokes there. Okay, so it helped make that center go that direction a little bit more. Okay, let's move on and paint just a little bit in here. So my angle brush wet, I rinsed out, I had a little bit of black in it, so I'm going to get it wet. I'm going to pick up some asphaltum, little bit of marigold, little touch of light buttermilk. If I was a bird, I would move in. Oh, cute, Lynn. Okay, so now I'm going to take my brush and I'm just going to swipe it across a paper towel. Okay, I want it. And in here, I'm just going to do exactly like I did for the twigs on the nest. And it's going to look quite wet. These are very, very subtle. Let me show you the finished one. Okay, so see how very, very subtle those are. And there goes the lightning. So again, if I lose power, I will jump back on when the storm is over and finish this up. But I just want this to be very kind of cross-hatched and not really exact or messy. And that's a little on the bright side, so I'm going to tone it down. Okay. And then rinse out my brush, get some asphaltum on there, and I'm just going to do a wash of asphaltum right over it. If it's too bright, if you like the way it is, it's not too bright, then go ahead and leave it. Okay, but if it's too bright, you definitely want to put a wash of asphaltum over it. Okay, let's put in our little eggs. So I'm going to use, you can use your angle brush. I'm just going to use a flat brush. Little bit of, this is peacock teal, and in my instructions, it has desert turquoise. Could not find that color anywhere today, even though I used it on my original. So I'm using a little bit of peacock teal. You could also even use the Vintage Effects, but the Vintage Effects are, they're a little transparent. So of course I want these eggs to be solid. So a little bit of that turquoise color and asphaltum. More of the blue than the asphaltum, okay? And I'm going to paint in 3 little eggs. Now, the pattern comes with the design for the, the pattern for the eggs, but if you just do these very, long oval egg shapes, you don't have to put the pattern on. You can just wing it and freehand those. Okay, and then we'll put one right in here. All right, so they're going to be quite dark for a while. Count the Fugly brush. There's a Dynasty brush. Thank you so much, Robin, for answering her. I appreciate that. So this is actually, it's an encaustic brush. And what it's made for is like hot wax. It's a natural bristle brush. It works really good for creating wood grains, base coating. You get texture with it because it has these really nice bristle, stiff bristles, okay? So it'll say encaustic or wax brush. This is the number 1, and I do have this on my website, right under the What's New tab. All right, so with our eggs, and I'm seeing something else that I could do to help the shape of my nest. So I'm just going to pick up again some of my colors, brown and marigold. I want to take away some of this. I left too much space here. I want to tighten that in just a little bit. So again, I just picked up asphaltum, marigold, a little bit of light buttermilk, and I'm just going to tighten that corner a little bit more. Okay. And a little bit light buttermilk, since we had that brighter color on that side. All right, so moving on to the eggs. They're pretty dry right now. So I'm just gonna wipe off my brush, pick up my turquoise color, go ahead and repaint them. So I'm going to hit that with the heat tool just to get those to dry quicker. Really praying we don't lose power. All right. So once I get those done, I'm going to take my angle brush, a little bit of asphaltum on the toe of the brush. So see how it's just on that toe of the brush, and kind of work that in. You don't have to do it on your hand, you can do it on your palette. I just want you to see it's slightly damp. And then right along the bottom of this, I'm going to float that color along the bottom of all the eggs. Just kind of tap and float that color in to separate them. Give them a little bit more shape. Anywhere they touch, so back here, float in that color, right along the bottom, right around that side to separate those, and along the bottom. And you can take the clean heel and just kind of soften that out if you need to. Okay. Yes, Sandra, we are. In fact, my husband just walked out and looked out the back door because my studio is on the back end of our whole house, and it really is coming down. So I keep wanting to go back and fix some things on the nest, but I'm going to leave it for right now. Hit that with the heat tool. Okay. If you want to beef up the color a little bit too of that blue, you can take that Vintage Effects, and you can also, again, remember it's a wash, so you can wash a little bit of that brighter color on along the top of the egg. I am noticing that it is causing my video to stutter. Sorry about that, guys. And again, you can come back with some of the asphaltum. Okay, you don't want a line, so I'm just coming back with the heel of that brush and kind of softening that out a little bit. And then I'm going to take some more of that Vintage Effects, just kind of put it in the top area of these eggs, just to brighten it up a little bit. Okay, now let's dry that. Thank you so much, Robin. Thank you, Nancy Stovall, for sharing. Okay, now let's put in a little highlight on these eggs. So you can use a little flat brush that's dry. You can also use my favorite, which are the Mezzaluna brushes. These have a nice little stiff bristle. And let me show you both ways in case you don't have the Mezzaluna. I do have them on my website though. They're a great brush. They also have them at the Brush Guys. For dry brushing, they do great clouds. I think Marlene Fudge uses them to make, or Lana Lamb uses them to make evergreen trees. So I'm just going to work that into my brush, dry it off really well. Put in your white, wipe off your brush, and then you're just going to softly go in a circle to kind of soften out, fade out that color. Okay, you can even use your finger. Okay, that's using a flat brush. All right, lid on the bright side. Let me show you how to take that down a notch. You can come back over it with some of the Vintage Effects wash. Oop, I'm going to have a hole right there. Okay, that's something not to do. See how I did my highlight, my little dry brush of color. Instead of letting it dry, I went over it with a wash and it lifted. So it's not 100% dry. I need to leave it alone. Okay, let me move on and show you the Mezzaluna brush. So little white on the brush, work it in, swirl it around, wipe it off on your paper towel really well. I like to put in a bright spot. Wiped off too much. Kind of put in a bright spot and then soften it out. Okay, now that's so harsh and in your face. Those are so soft and pretty, right? The little highlight. You can still see where I put the dot in and softened it out. So let me hit those with the heat tool. I am, Robin, I'm painting on, this is a 12-inch plaque from, let me zoom out here, from cdwood.com. I don't know the number of it. It's in the packet, which number it is, but it's just a great surface to paint on. You could paint this on any surface, though. I think it'd look super pretty on the in a wreath, like if you did a smaller circle and put it in the center of a wreath. Okay, so I am going to come back. So I want to tone that down with a little bit of the Vintage Effects. I'm just going to wash that right over that white. Tone that down. Let's see if the peacock. There we go. So instead of the Vintage Effects, I picked up some of the turquoise there. Soften that. There we go. Okay, see how that just toned down and softened that highlight? Was just a little too much. So I'm gonna tap on a highlight here, wipe off my brush really, really well, and just soften that out. Okay. Dry brush a little bit more on those. I'll leave that one, let it completely dry, and come back and wash over it. Hi, Pat. So glad you're here. Yes, I know, right? And Anna, those eggs just look like they're just straight down into the middle of that very deep nest. Okay, now, like I showed you before, I want to paint some very thin lines. So I'm going to use, this is a number 2 Faux Squirrel Rigger. For those that watch Tracy Moreau paint on her lives and stuff, this is one of her go-to brushes. She has hooked me on it just like that encaustic brush. But this is a brush that can go flat. Okay, so see how, I'm going to turn it to the side. See how flat that brush is and wide. You can use it round like a liner. It comes round, it looks round, but you can make it go flat. So I'm going to load that up with some water, load it up with some asphaltum and some Titan Buff, Titan Buff light buttermilk, hello, a little bit of marigold. I'm just going to kind of roll that brush around, make sure there's no water on the ferrule, because when that drips down your brush, it's going to make a huge mess. But I want very lightly, I want to paint these little wispy strokes of twigs that come into the nest. Okay, very soft, very thin. The water is going to help you do that. Okay, get too bright, come back with a little bit of brown on them. But I like them over, like at least one of the eggs. Okay, and then, you know, on your little wispies that come out here, you can do a couple. All right, so I'm gonna tone down our little wash of color on the bright egg right here, like we did the others. And then I'll come back and beef that up if I need to. It's always a good idea at the very end of your painting to hold it back, step away, evaluate your lights and your darks, see what you need to add, what you need to take away. Let's step away from our nest now, and I'm going to move on to our words. I did use a stencil. You can print out whatever words you want. This stencil is from Creative Arts Lifestyle. It is, and I don't think I have that one loaded in my, I do not. It's a Patricia Rawlinson, and if you look up Studio R12, that's the number right there, okay? So you can see that. Great stencils. Now, notice this is, you know, it's round, and I wanted these to be in different places. So let me show you a trick. If you're trying to lay out your stencil and you're not exactly sure where you want the words, because of course I didn't want them just like this. The riggers are hard to find, Linda. I have them on order, so hopefully I will have them soon. And I know that Tracy has them on order as well. Okay, so you want to put your stencil on. And if let's see, I have the, be close to that. I'm just eyeballing my original. And then these lines that go across this surface are a good guess to how much space is showing on the bottom of that letter to let you know if it's straight or not, all right? You can get a ruler out if you want to. I'm just going to eyeball it. But a white chalk pencil, because if I am not sure that this is where I want, instead of painting it out and realizing that that's not where I want it, going over it quickly with a chalk pencil, and this is my favorite. This is a General's white charcoal chalk pencil, because you can easily wipe it off. Okay, so look, if I'm like, oh, I like my words there. If not, I can move, you know, and wipe it off with a baby wipe. And then I have our, again, I can kind of line that up, go over it with the pencil so that you can see where you want it, okay? Now, again, as easy as wiping it off with a baby wipe. I'm just gonna leave that right now. Line it back up. Okay, and let's stencil. So, you know what? Let me, oh, thank you, Marishu. Okay, it is a nice stencil, isn't it, Patricia? So let me just recap that real quick, because I saw that my hand just froze on the screen again. So if you're not sure where you want your stencil or how it's gonna look, you can take your white charcoal pencil, chalk pencil, and go through the stencil, see if that's where you want your placement. Okay, and then especially down here when I was putting the word nest on, I wanted to make sure, I liked that it overlapped the nest, and I didn't want it too far away from the word our. So, you know, laying that in place, making sure it's straight. Not necessary for every time you stencil, just if you're unsure about where you want your transfer line stencil to go, okay? So see, I can lay it out, see if it's spaced out enough. Ours a little high, so I can take a baby wipe, wipe it off, dry it off, center this, have glitter. I did a Facebook Live on DecoArt's page on Friday and have glitter in my water basin. Okay, so I can lay it out. All right, so that will help you kind of lay them out where you want them. And again, because it's chalk, it will wipe right off. So let's put this on, and I do have a couple things going on with my words. Let me show you my original. I did a little bit of a shadow first, and then I came back in with light buttermilk, highlighted it with white. So I'm going to do black first. You're so welcome, Roseanne. Thanks for being here. Another tip Holly Hanley did on the DecoArt Craft Minute videos is she stenciled onto a page protector, and then you can kind of lay that in place. I'm almost positive she did that. I've done it on transparency film before, but that's a little hard to come by, and it's expensive. So the chalk pencil works great. Okay, so I'm going to lay my stencil in place, grab one of my stencil brushes. Again, my Stencil Pro, black, load it up, swirl it off. So let me come here and show you. Load it up, swirl it around. You want to take most of that paint off. It's easier to add more. It's harder to take all that paint that seeps underneath the stencil off. All right, so make sure this is straight. Soft circular motions, counterclockwise, clockwise. That will help pick up all the paint that's building up on the other side of the stencil. Okay. Clockwise, counterclockwise. Oops, just went into my area. I should have had a Post-it note. I could have covered that in. Okay. In fact, do I have a Post-it note somewhere? I don't think so. You can use painter's tape to, you know, block that off, or like Lana Lamb shared. You can take a Post-it note to block that off. Okay. Now, I don't like I love stencils. I love how easy it is to put words on your surface, on your projects, but I don't like the look of a stencil, meaning I don't like the bridges. So the words have those bridges in it to keep the letter from falling through. So I'm going to show you how I cover those in. Okay, see, I didn't load that brush any more than that one time, and it's covered everything, right? Now I'll take my small little flat brush. You can also use the rigger if you want to. A liner brush will work. Pick up a little bit of black paint. And actually, I'm going to use that rigger. It's going to help me not get outside the lines. But I want to make this not look like a stencil. And even though I'm going to go over it with another color, I still want to take care of this right now, just in case any of this shows when I go back and do the next layer. Bye, Marilyn. Thanks for being here. Don't forget to let me know what e-packet you want. For being the first to comment on the post. All right. Oops, that water just went right down my brush. Okay, so again, just taking away the look of it being a stencil. Nice and light. Notice how I'm not just doing that, so I'm going past that little space. So I'm going past it and over it and past it. Instead of just filling in that one, you can see when you just fill in that little area. So again, go past it, over it, and past it. And this brush is absolutely perfect for filling this in. And any chalk lines, I can still see some of my chalk. I'll just take a baby wipe when I'm completely done, and it will take it right off. Okay, did I miss anywhere? Yep, right there. And the S. All right. Okay, so I'm going to hit that with the heat tool and just make sure it's completely dry. Right, Nancy? You know, transferring letters and words on, it's okay. I mean, it's easy. It'll get your thing on there. But a stencil, you know, just does it so much faster. All right. Now, let me show you, because my stencil got black, it has black on it. I want to take that black off. So a little hand sanitizer. I'm gonna get that black off, because if I go over that with my light buttermilk color, it's going to pick up some of that black and it's going to alter my color. So I am going to go ahead and get that off. Use a baby wipe. Wipe that side. And that's how I clean my stencils and my brushes, okay? Then I will give my stencils a little bit of a bath in the water just to take that hand sanitizer off, because the hand sanitizer can dry things out. Like if you use them on your rubber stamps or on your stencils, I don't want that alcohol-y hand sanitizer to make it brittle. All right, so now I need to dry this. Let me find my paper towels. Nice little dry. If there are a lot of little parts and pieces on a stencil, I will lay it down and just kind of smooth it out so that you don't lift those, because scrubbing back and forth can lift some of those that have really delicate features on a stencil. So I didn't get it all off. That's quite all right. But what I want to do now is line it back up. And I'm going to shift it to the right. Okay, so I'm going to slightly shift it to the right. So see how you can see a space in between that color? So now I'm going to take a stencil brush with some light buttermilk, swirl that around, wipe most of it off, and I'll stencil over the black. Okay, soft circular motions, counterclockwise, clockwise. I had to switch brushes. Okay, clockwise, counterclockwise, just to pick up all that excess. Have very little paint on my brush. Okay, so we'll have that. I'm going to paint this on a 10-inch round, so I drew the letters to replicate the stencil minus the breaks. I think it'll look really pretty on a 10-inch round, Claire, and again, I think in the middle of a wreath would look really pretty too. Okay, I'm going to line it up with Our and scooch it over, and I have to grab a different brush. That one's giving me a little bit of a problem. Okay, so light buttermilk, I'll load that up, wipe it off. And good idea you could do this kind of stippling, stenciling. That hurts my hand, so I tend to swirl clockwise, counterclockwise, and there's Our. And because I don't have that much paint on it, I can go right on to the next thing. If you're worried about this being wet, you can dry it. But line it up with your word, slide it to the right, and go over it. Now, my first layer on my original covered beautifully. If it doesn't cover and you want it to be a little bit more opaque, start back at the first word, add another layer. Okay, if it needs it. But as you're going over it with the light buttermilk, it's going to look like you're going to still be able to see that black, but I promise you, it will cover just like that. All right. Now I want to take that rigger, and for this I am going to sit down. I've been standing. I stand when I paint. I have a hard time sitting when I paint, and but just to have a little bit more control over this brush. I'm going to sit down. Again, this is the number 2 rigger, a little bit of water, a little bit of that light buttermilk. And again, you want to go past, have water on there. Go past where you're filling in, over the area. And take care of those bridges. They're going to look really wet on camera and bright. They will tone down. I have also, once you have it stenciled on, you can take that brush and go over the whole letter. At least you have the letter on there now and the shape, and I didn't have to transfer it. Again, another reason I love using a stencil for words. Just don't like it looking like a stencil. Okay. Cover up all those bridges. And I can still see some chalk lines. At the very end, I'll just go over that with a baby wipe, pick it up. Thankfully, our storms have ended. Looks like the sun's trying to come out. Thankfully, the lightning has ended and the rain, which I'm sure all of you heard. All right. Robin, thank you so very much for putting that link. Robin put the link for the stencil that I'm using. Roseanne had asked, and so if you look in the comments, you'll be able to see that, but I will also list it at the end. Patty Rawlinson, creativeartslifestyle.com. She sells surfaces, the most amazing stencils, I think, and packets from other artists. So talented, that lady. Okay. And I'm seeing in places, you know, a couple where, you know, it's too bright, so I will go over the whole letter. I'm not going to do that right now. But if I were to finish it out, you know, and off and wanting the letters to look nice, I would go over them. Hello, let's scooch up. Okay. Oh, let's see anywhere I missed. I'm seeing right here. Okay. Oh, that's a good idea, Virginia, to stick it on the back of your Winter Wonderland surface, because it's exactly the same surface. All right, so now that I filled those in, I took the same brush, got it wet, loaded it with some white, and I just highlighted, just with a little stroke. I like this, I don't know, I just think it lightens up and gives these letters another little decorative element. So a little white highlight. And slide those on. Okay. So this is just white, inky, a little bit of water. Again, just an added little decorative element, I think, on those letters. Okay. Just a few more steps and we'll be done with this. Will I add a feather on the nest? Yeah, y'all want to add a feather? Let's add a feather. I'm going to let those letters set up and I'll add a tiny little feather. Okay. This is not on the original, but like I said, when I was on with my group on Facebook the other day, I said I should add a little feather and I didn't. I completely forgot. So I'm going to add one now, and it's just going to be a little bit of light buttermilk. And hopefully it goes well. If it doesn't, it'll come off with a baby wipe. Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of tuck one in right here. Tuck in a little feather. Let's add some white to that. Okay, tiny little white feather. Kind of looks like wheat. Put a little bit of brown. Okay. So just back to a little white and pick up a little buttermilk. A little bit of brown on the end of it. And then using that rigger. I'm just using, this is a number 4 flat, Monica. Thank you so much, Anne Marie. That means a lot. I appreciate that. And again, just a little bit of white on that rigger. I can come back in and make these even. You know, those little down feathers are so thin and, oops. And then maybe just the too much. Okay, so tiny little white feather. Cute, huh? Adding the brown made all the difference. I agree, Suzanne. It made it kind of show up for you guys more too, and then also help with that little vein. You could also do a little bit of the black and white to do a little gray, but let's add just a tiny touch. I'm curious. So since you guys had me do that little feather, I am going to put a little bit of a blue tint with the Vintage Effects. There. Okay. Cute. I love it. Thanks for having me do that, you guys. All right. Let's scooch out. And where's my angle brush? Okay. I'm going to get a little bit of asphaltum, a little bit of marigold. And we'll just take a couple little twigs right over that so it doesn't look like it's just hanging there by itself, but that it's in the nest. All right, there. Okay, now on the letters, I wanted those to show up a little bit more. So I came back with a little bit of asphaltum and black on the toe of my angle brush. You can see I have some moisture in there. Okay. If you wanted to, and then you can also, oops, a little bit too dark. I gave it a little bit of a float of color just to make it stand out a little bit more. Now, this step, I did it last. Again, I felt like the letters needed something. You can do this step before the buttermilk, okay? That way, if you get on it, it won't matter. Just kind of made those stand out a little bit more. That's not even showing up that great, is it? Let's go in. Okay. So a little black, a little brown. Again, just a little bit of that color. I think it helps tie those words into the piece instead of it just being there. Gives it a little bit of a shadow. It's very, very light. Okay, again, I don't even know if it's showing up great for you guys, but little black, little brown, toe of my angle brush. All right. And I see some areas that need to, definitely be darker because I started getting darker as I went down. Okay. Let's zoom out. Last little touches here. Oh, I do love the little feather. It's cute. I do want to, again, go over that just a touch. I think with another little twig. To incorporate that more into the nest. Thank you, Joanne. I love these colors too. All right. Now, I do want to add some splatter. I'm all for splatter. Love me some splatter. Let's zoom out so you can see my messy desktop. Okay, so I splattered on my piece some black and some white, and I'm gonna do the black first, using your 3/8 angle brush, wet, lots of water. Come over and load it up and make that paint nice and inky and wet. Okay, now this is the way I splatter. Handle of the brush over the handle of the brush. If you're on the ferrule, the metal part of the brush, not going to splatter as well for you. Middle of the brush, middle of the brush. The head of the brush is flat. Okay, if I was using a round brush, that'd be okay too, but wherever the head of the brush is, that's primarily where your splatter is going to go. So if I want it, over here, I'm going to move my brush. So I'm going to splatter some black there, move, splatter some black, splatter, splatter, and you don't want it everywhere. We don't want it snowing, that black little splatter, but you can put it here and there. So I have it there, there, there on the nest, a little bit in that corner. Now it's a little harsh, I think. So I'm going to take a little bit of paper towel. I noticed you didn't use extender. Any special reason? No, Karen, no reason at all. You can use extender. You can use some fast drying glaze. I just used some water. Okay, now look how that softens that splatter. So it looks like it's stained instead of just sitting on top. There are a couple of dark spots, and I like that you get a variation. So Just lay your paper towel, lightly press, and it will lift. Now, if you get it somewhere you don't want it, you can go ahead with the baby wipe and take care of it right now. Like I feel in my letters, I got a couple too many, so I'm just going to wipe some of those off, just like that. Okay, and then to soften that, I'm going to do, I said white, but I think I used light buttermilk. Again, on my brush, water, light buttermilk, nice and inky, handle of a brush. I'll splatter some over where I did before. Oops. When it stops coming off, you know you need to pick up some more. Okay, let it sit a minute. Soften it with a paper towel. Okay, so let me lift that up so you can see. So even that, you know, again, it's just a soft, stained little splatter look. And I wiped it all off right there. There's no paint. Do you put any sealer on the top? Yes, Pilar, when I'm completely done with my entire piece and it's dry, this is my go-to varnish. I love putting the soft touch varnish on just about everything. I like more of a matte look instead of a gloss. DuraClear is another, and I don't have one of those right there, but DuraClear soft touch varnish works just as well. And I do think, right here. Okay, so the DuraClear soft touch varnish works. I just love the way it makes it feel. And then you can, like if you have it on your front door, you can wipe it off if it gets dirt on it and dust it. So, okay, so I need to put a little bit more light buttermilk right here. Completely wipe all of that off. And again, if you have it go where you don't want it, wipe it off while it's still wet. Let that sit a minute and lightly tap. Okay. Now I do want to come back. I just feel like these are a little on the wimpy side with a highlight. So I'm going to dry brush a little bit more white. Yes, gives them a nice little shine. You're welcome, Kathy. Thank you. All right, finishing touches. I love this next little tip because I love how it draws your eye into the piece. So I'm going to take a baby wipe and let me tell you a trick too. If it's in the bottom of your baby wipes, like you're almost out, those are usually wetter. So you want to squeeze it out if there's too much of that moisture in it. So I'm going to wrap it around my index finger, stick that into the palm of my hand, take my palette, pick up some asphaltum and a little bit of black. Run it back and forth on your palette. I can tell I got a little too much black. Okay, so I have black and brown, and I'm running it back and forth on my index finger. This is important. Your wrist needs to be on the inside of your surface. If it's on the outside, it leaves a very harsh line, okay, on the edge. So let me work on the top, and I want to just run that right around. That outside inner edge, right over the nest and everything. Remember how I told you that will knock that color down? It's going to help sit that nest right into that corner. And because there's moisture in the baby wipe, it's going to make it look like you floated that color on. Easy peasy. A little black, little brown. If you need to move your baby wipe, you know, just move it to a clean area. Just make sure you put that in the palm of your hand. And I'm feeling like I'm getting a little line right there. There we go. You want it to look like it's floated. Nothing harsh. All right. So see how that just draws your eye right into that. Thank you, Isabel. Thank you so much. Pat, what is this? Splattering is so artsy, I think is maybe what you wrote. Linda, I do too. These are my colors too. I love this turquoise and browns, and that asphaltum is just a golden, beautiful brown color. So, and you guys were right. The little feather was spot on. So I think I will go back and add it to my original, my original piece. That your wrist position would be important doing this trick is so important, Karen. Again, if you have your finger out on the edge, it will leave such a harsh line. Whereas, you know, that baby wipe, since there's moisture in it, it's going to help it bleed into the center instead. So, and again, I just love the look. I love the way it draws your eye in. But again, hello, exact same pattern, I think this is super cute, and it would look even cute with 2 or 3 over, maybe even 2 over here. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Thank you so much for joining me. And I will post the winners for the live on my next live, which I will post soon. It will be on YouTube. So if you don't follow me on YouTube, I'd love for you to go over there and subscribe. I'm close to 2,000 subscribers on there. Woohoo! So once I hit that, I will probably do an extra giveaway on our next live that we do, next live lesson. So again, thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your day. This will be up on my YouTube channel. You can rewatch, replay, get the pattern on my website if you want to paint it. And thank you guys again so much for joining me. Have a fantastic day. I hope you get those paints and brushes out this week and do something creative. Talk to y'all later. Bye. Thanks.